healthy, lively and loving. In fact, many people find them perfect companions. So much so that when a pet dies, there's a very real feeling of loss, of deprivation.
It's very hard to describe really, because unless you've actually been through the experience with them, and they become as attached to them as what they are, one of their own kind really, because of it's the only one they have left, because most of them are elderly people that have lost their husbands or their wife, whichever the case might be, with the end result is a pet dog or cat is all they have left.
Have a look at the wall.
Joseph and Audrey Smith operate a pet crematorium. Their quiet block on Nelson Bay Road is the final resting place of several dogs and cats whose owners felt a last tribute was needed.
I wanted him to have a special place, a special resting place, to know that he was being cared for, looked after, and he had this special place all for himself, and I could come and visit.
For Chris, the cremation was a token of respect for Mr Magoo, her 11-year-old Cocker Spaniel, and a means of easing her grief. And she's not alone. Many others have turned to the Smiths' unique service. And if it seems too much fuss and expense at $75 a cremation and $100 extra for a plaque, it's worth remembering that for many, the alternatives just can't be considered.
Fred Paul suffers from Alzheimer's disease. He turned 79 the other day and was given a party by his family, which today he can no longer remember. He was first diagnosed 4 years ago, but for the last 2 months has been in a special ward at the Hunter Hospital. His wife, Olive, found that she could no longer manage him in their home at Lemon Tree Passage. After caring for him 24 hours a day, trying to keep him from wandering away from the house, it eventually became too much of a burden for Mrs. Olive to carry.
They get to the stage where they can't dress, go to the toilet, even their own home is not recognisable to them. They lose their way, don't know where the bathroom is or the bedroom, so that in the finish you spend 24 hours a day just looking after them.
Home carers become burnt out, that's the simplest way of putting it, and their health starts to suffer. They become anxious, they become frightened, they feel alone in the world, and very soon we have more than one patient, we have 2 or 3 patients.
The Baronia ward at Hunter Hospital is emergency accommodation only, but it was the only place which could be found in the region for Fred. This is despite an extensive and vigilant search carried out by his local doctor, Andrew Nolan.
It's not unusual at all. You always have to struggle. You know, there's a fight every time.
Dr. Nolan is critical of some nursing homes which he claims discriminate against sufferers of Alzheimer's disease.
Yes, I do. I really do think they're discriminating against them. I think that they're just making a judgment that they're, you know, we want nice old people that are nice to look after and, you know, and don't take up much nursing care.
And getting it set up.
That's good. I'm filming all this.
Breathe away. I've got to
All traffic heading north and south wishing to bypass Newcastle is using this road since the latest section of freeway was opened in March. Rod Hunt, a local shopkeeper, and his family use this road every day. He says more than 80 semis can pass his shop in 1 hour.
I did a count last Friday morning and counted 80 trucks in 1 hour. Not saying that that's every hour, but the figure would be, very high up, in the 70s or 80s, I would say.
It looks to me, and I'm no expert, but it looks to me as if the road's just crumbling under the pressure and the weight.
Well, let's face it, the traffic that's on here shouldn't really be on here. This road wasn't designed to take the amount of traffic that's going north. And that's where all this traffic's headed, because once they come off the end of the new freeway, then they're directed in this direction to go to Nelson's Bay, Taree and further north.
And in the town of Pelaw Main, the once quiet main street is now a busy thoroughfare. Since the freeway section was opened in March, the traffic has been spilling into the town. To add insult to injury, trucks have discovered this quiet turnoff, which bypasses the town of Curry, but takes them through a residential street. The huge pothole on the corner tells the story. Little wonder the locals are hopping mad.
I blame the Department of Main Roads totally because the complete lack of planning has gone into it.
What a racket she makes.
What does it do to your properties?
You can feel the house trembling with it. You can feel the house trembling with the noise going on there.
They come along with a couple of shovelfuls of tar, put it here, it ends up all in our lawn, our driveway, our gutter.
Look at all this.
We're forever cleaning up.
I've got the message that they're talking to each other to use the shortcut. Right. Now this is what they're doing. They're using our street as their shortcut.
There's going to be a lot of people killed on this road before Christmas. That's for sure.
Brian is just one of a number of people in the Hunter each year who fall victim to melanoma. He lies in the special bed donated by a local service club. Called a Mecca bed, it allows Brian to be moved with minimal discomfort, but that doesn't erase the brutal reality of his condition.
The cancer's in his spine, so you can't actually touch him, it hurts him too much. Alright? And he's numb from the waist down, that means he's got no control over his bowels or his bladder. So you've got to try and
Brian's fight against cancer started 5 years ago. A mole just a millimetre deep was removed from his back. After tissue around that mole was removed, Brian was given the all clear. In September last year, a lump in a gland under his arm was removed. Doctors then gave him an 80% chance of a full recovery. But since then, his condition has deteriorated rapidly.
What does that mean as far as mobility?
As far as mobility is concerned, I have none from the waist down.
Brian puts his melanoma down to skin irritation and the time spent in the sun as a young man. He says a factor 10 sunscreen should be a minimum, 15 for young children. At 39, Brian has one last wish, and that is to establish a support group in the Upper Hunter for other terminally ill people and their families.
They do have a Hunter Melanoma Foundation, which has only just recently started. If the community could get behind them financially, it would be a big benefit. It won't benefit me, but it'll benefit a lot of other people in the long run.
"16 years ago, a new business moved into town, a tannery, which processes the hides of local cattle into leather. And with it came a new smell. But in the last few months, the locals say that smell in their town has become unbearable.
The smell's that bad that sometimes you can taste it. It has a real oily, salty taste.
Why should we have to barricade ourselves in our homes, even in the mornings? You wake up in the morning and you can't have the windows open because the smell is just so strong. It's unpleasant. It burns the lining on your nose. It's that strong.
And my son heaves at the smell. He comes inside heaving at the smell of Aberdeen.
The locals claim these sludge pits about a kilometre east of the town centre are partly to blame. The tannery uses the pits to store the sludge, which is a byproduct of its process. The sludge contains what's left after the hair and fleshing from the hides have been removed. Tom O'Connell has led the most recent campaign to have the pits filled in, calling on the council to use its powers under local health regulations. So what does the company at the centre of the problem have to say? Wolverton Proprietary Limited started operations in 1972. Located on the hill above the town, it employs 21 people and enjoys a turnover of $16 million a year, much of that from exports.
We were going to spend $250,000 to import a machine to reduce the solids down here, and they'll be stored on site. There won't be an odour.
The tanning business, is it a good business? Can it spend that sort of money?
Well, I'd say we can afford to spend it. When I say that, afford to spend it, no, as I said to you, no one can afford to spend it, but to be in this sort of area, yeah, we'll spend that sort of money to stay here and to keep everyone happy, or try and keep everyone happy.
It's like my muscles are lead. It's like when you get the fatigue, if you keep going, it's as though they don't feel like normal arms and legs. They just feel as though you've got these things attached to you that are like lead. And then the pain sets in, and my muscles go into spasm, and they actually twitch. You can see them twitching.
We're so fatigued, right? We feel so sick that it's just impossible to enjoy yourself.
A few friends of mine that they go around telling everyone, you know, it's all in your mind and that you're virtually a hypochondriac, you know, because you look so well, and, you know, so fit. You know, how could you possibly be sick, you know?
Originally, when I first came down with an original virus in '83, I could not move for virtually 6 months. I was bedridden, and I had to be showered. I had to be carried to the bathroom. I couldn't move in bed. I couldn't roll over.
Professor Dennis Wakefield is the head of immunology at Prince Henry Hospital.
Well, at the moment there isn't, and there won't be a cure until we know more about the basic cause of the disease.
Does that mean that at this stage the medical profession is reasonably ignorant about what causes ME?
Oh yes, very much so. We don't know the mechanisms involved. We think that it's caused by or precipitated by viral infections or other types of bacterial infection, and then that it subsequently affects the immune system. But why people get fatigued and what causes this to continue and be profound and prolonged is unknown.
For Australians,
but a Central Coast doctor who's been studying the blood samples of sufferers of ME suggests that perhaps it's not a virus, but rather a high level of toxic chemicals.
Have been caused for this. I think what we're looking for is contributing factors, things which set the stage for the immune suppression and the viruses and the problems which subsequently occur. But we've all known for a long time that there has not been so far pushed any simple cause, any simple reason why the immune suppression, which is the hallmark of this disease, should happen. And it has been known for a long while that these chemicals are capable of causing this kind of immune suppression.
This is a scene which is being repeated all too often in Hunter Valley homes. An asthma attack so serious that the ambulance service is called in to assist.
Good. Breathe out slowly.
Asthma has definitely taken a turn for the worst, and we've noticed it over these two previous seasons. And indeed, over this last season, from autumn through to winter, we've noted here a 400% increase in the incidence of asthma.
So what's causing these deaths?
Well, we know that in each individual case it's the same thing, that people are breaking the rules. They're not recognising how severe their attack is. They're not getting help. They're staying at home. They're not paying enough attention to their preventative medications. But why, right now, more people are breaking the rules, nobody knows.
70% of cases which get to the hospital, still breathing, will live. But that still leaves some who fall victim, like 19-year-old Paul Healy of Hamilton. On the 13th of June this year, Paul died in hospital after an early morning asthma attack at home.
Went back in and put a blanket around him to keep him warm. And he just so calmly sat there and said to me, "Mum, I'm going to die." And I said, "Oh no, Paul," I said, "you're not going to die, you know, I love you too much. Plus, I've rang the ambulance is not very far away. You're going to be all right." And he said, "No, Mum," he said, I'm going to die."
Despite Paul's sudden death, doctors still claim that no asthmatic should ever die
and take
if they get to
responsibility
hospital
for
in
their
time.
own illness. If they'll take the responsibility, then they'll take their preventative medication. Then they'll recognise the signs. And when things get bad, they won't stay at home to have another mill on the nebuliser on the pump. They won't have another 15 or 20 puffs on their puffer. They'll say, "Look, I'm in trouble," and they'll get help. They'll ring their doctor. They'll go to the surgery. They'll come to the hospital. They'll ring the ambulance, whatever it is, to get them proper care.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland Brothers.
People see us as the guy next door, or they see us as being like them. They look at what we do, they think we could do that, and I think that works because they say, well, they're not actors, they're just real people.
Very average.
And because we're average, I think they can relate.
Hi, we collectively are the Monkees, and it's not just a rumour.
Yeah, we're coming to Newcastle.
Like it or not.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on Newsnight.
We're going to be on Newsnight.
Newsnight?
We're going to be on Newsnight. Fantastic.
All you got is this moment. 21st century is yesterday. You can care all you want.
Your friends call you the rat lady. Is that a nice...
I don't mind. Because rats are good animals. And I say real people love rats.
Have you ever been in love?
Who is Leo? So God knows. God knows. I wish I knew. A little fella who never gives me a day off.
I hate drawing. I'd rather dig a hole and draw. And I do it whenever I go broke. I've got to get my pencil out and start drawing again.
Kids often would love to be able to say no, but don't feel like they've got the support. They don't feel that they have the support these days of institutions like the school and the church, and they feel they've lost the support of their parents to do that.
I'm giving up healthy today.
We were very polite to each other. We didn't say much and just listened to the coach that was with us.
Yeah, I just remember it was very cold. It wasn't sort of one of those idyllic meetings, really, was it? It wasn't sort of the sun out and the bells ringing or anything like that.
Like most Western societies, Australia's population is getting older and living longer. In the Hunter region, about 12% of the community is more than 65 years of age. Nearly 300,000 people Australia-wide face an added problem to getting old. They have what's known as Alzheimer's disease. Nobody knows what causes it, and its symptoms are not easy to treat. A gradual deterioration takes place, starting with forgetfulness, confusion, and finally dementia. Constant wandering, disorientation, aggression, delusions, and paranoia. Doctors will tell you it's the surface area of the brain which often determines how well a person can think and function. The brain of a person suffering Alzheimer's actually shrinks as the condition advances.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Fred Paul suffers from Alzheimer's disease. He turned 79 the other day and was given a party by his family, which today he can no longer remember. He was first diagnosed 4 years ago, but for the last 2 months has been in a special ward at the Hunter Hospital. His wife, Olive, found that she could no longer manage him in their home at Lemon Tree Passage.
They lose their way, don't know where the bathroom is or the bedroom, so that in the finish you spend 24 hours a day just looking after them.
You always have to struggle. You know, there's a fight every time.
Dr. Nolan is critical of some nursing homes which he claims discriminate against sufferers of Alzheimer's disease.
Yes, I do. I really do think they're discriminating against them. I think that they're just making a judgment that they're, you know, we want nice old people that are nice to look after and, you know, and don't take up much nursing care.
But the bitter reality is that there is a drastic shortage of suitable facilities and accommodation. The final blow is that Alzheimer's strikes the elderly, those less politically active in our society. And that's why it's been called the silent epidemic.
This is really probably the last of the old-time cattle drives that we'll know in our generation.
People say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down. We're just trying to...
And I make the spare part for them. And from then on, it's up to me then to put them back into society.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland Brothers.
Five, four, we've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start. And the shuttle has cleared the tower.